Hey, remember the Bakugan Pro TCG? The TCG with lots of intriguing mechanics, tons of options for decks, and an engaging skill check built right into the core gameplay? I remember. You thought I'd forget, didn't you, Spin Master? I didn't. No one did. Unfortunately, that's been dead in the water for years now because Spin Master got scared of commitment, and now we're not getting any new content ever again because Spin Master abandoned Gen 2 to make this. So there I am, wishing for new Bakugan, and said, you know what?
Fine. I'll do it myself.
And a few shitty edited cards later, and I now have a new set of Bakugan TCG character cards for all of you to enjoy. In this video, I'll go over the mechanics, rulings, and strategies for each Bakugan Overdrive, so you know just how to use these brand new custom character cards. So let's go over the first question you might be asking. What are Overdrive Bakugan? Overdrive Bakugan are similar to Fusions, where they're double-sided character cards, but there's a few key differences. For starters, they don't require energy or landing on certain cores to flip over. They have certain conditions or payments that need to be met in order to flip them over. Think of it as an expanded version of the epic Fusion character cards. Secondly, they only last for the turn, and flip back to the front side before the start of the next turn. And they also don't have some of the benefits that Fusions get, like dual factions and Fusion cores. But what they do have is powerful and unique Overdrive abilities. These abilities vary in quality and use cases, but they all have a place in someone's playstyle. But before we go over that, let's go over some basic rulings for these Bakugan. You're allowed to use any core version of the Bakugan you wish to use, as long as it's the correct Bakugan, meaning no Ultras, Platinums, or Novas. If your opponent is fine with you using a core fusion, that works as well. Want to use the BP Drago core because that's all you have? That's cool. Go ahead. Some overdrives require a manual activation, and in these cases the action works the same way as playing a card, in the way that priority determines when the action is allowed to happen. For instance, if the turn starts and your opponent has priority, you're not allowed to overdrive until they either play a card or pass priority. Also, overdrive activation cannot be responded to by another card or action. Although priority is passed after overdriving, this rule is important for a few specific scenarios, as well as an idea I have for future overdrives. As an example for why this is important, let's look at Halcore really quickly. Halcore allows the opponent to rearrange the top cards of their deck. If this ruling didn't exist, the opponent would be able to respond with a draw card to dig deeper and rearrange different cards. But instead, the ability happens immediately, and the opponent cannot respond by playing a card. Basically, the abilities and activation happen immediately to simplify it. Overdrives also can occur and be activated even if they aren't the active Bakugan. So be sure to know the use cases for your overdrives and maximize their potential. And this is just a soft ruling in case there's a broken combination, so it's not set in stone, but only one overdrive Bakugan on a team if you feel it's appropriate. Now with all those rules out of the way, let's look at the 12 overdrive Bakugan, see what they do, and what strategies you can use them with. All of the cards can either be downloaded using the Reddit links in the description, or you can just screenshot them when they're on screen. Or hell, just write on a note card if you want to. Oh, and make sure you use the most updated version of the card. Some cards I had to go back and edit them because they were either too broken and need to be nerfed, or they had some grammatical errors. Dragonoid. Drago comes with a Green Fist and Fire Fist and is 602. Pretty bad obviously, but his overdrive cost is one of the lowest out of the bunch. It only requires you to deal 2 damage to yourself, and when in overdrive he becomes a 1305, being a 1558 on his own cores and a 1955 with a shared magic shield. His ability causes 2 burn damage to your opponent every time they play an action card. The ability used to be any card, but that was a bit too good for the low cost and high stats. Drago is meant to be an easy to use Bakugan that can slot into any deck fairly easily. With a low cost to overdrive and high stat potential, the only thing holding him back is a semi-decent ability and bad cores. No real strategy is necessary to fully utilize Drago. Great against decks like Rapid Fire or Dan decks. Keep in mind that you can overdrive whenever you want, so if you know your opponent is going to play a large string of cards, using Drago to burn them is a great strategy. Hydorus. Hydorus is a 404 with double Helix. Not great stats, but pretty good cores. His cost is allowing the opponent to draw 2 cards, a pretty steep cost depending on your opponent's deck. A quick note, even if your opponent doesn't take the draw 2, you still overdrive. So if they have no cards in their deck to draw, sucks to suck, free overdrive. This applies to any other Bakugan that gives an offer to your opponent. When in overdrive, he becomes an 808, so a 1405 in his own cores. Neither of his stats are incredible, they're just pretty decent, but you can easily go into either B power or damage since his cores are helixes. The ability is where you'll get a lot of value. allowing you to play any Aquos card that costs 3 energy or less for free. And since Aquos has a wide range of different kinds of cards, Hydorous can easily help you win in any scenario. He's very adaptive and useful, but keep in mind that you're feeding your opponent more ammo to shoot you with, so make sure you don't accidentally put yourself in an even worse situation. One of my favorite ways to use this card is playing Shun turn 1. Even though you're giving your opponent an extra 2 cards at the start of the game, it's the best time to do it since they won't have any energy to play most of their cards. Plus Shun will nullify that cost in 2 turns. Trox. The objective worst front side of any of the 12, being a 301 with double green fist, leaves a lot to be desired. And with the overdrive cost being destroy one of your energy cards? Okay, this overdrive side better be good, right? Thankfully it is with a massive 1803 base stats, the biggest leap in stats by far. And I know the damage seems low, but it increases the longer the game goes on, as he gets +1 damage for each of your energy cards in play. So this guy can be a monster if you get some good ramp going. But keep in mind, if you use him too much, then you limit your ability to play big cards, so don't think it's a free win. Unless you have Wind, but like, this card is dumb anyway. Also, you can destroy energy cards that are uncharged, so make sure to use the energy before destroying it. And I gave him 2 green fists because Stoneblade is awesome. Pegatrix. Pegatrix is an 802 with a shield magic shield. Pretty average front side, usable but not amazing. The cost to overdrive is destroying a hero or evo card of your own. On overdrive, she's a 1204. Pretty solid stats. The ability is basically a honey trap. I know it doesn't seem like a great investment to destroy a hero or an evo for this, but that's because it's meant to be used with low cost heroes and in a deck that uses a ton of heroes and gears that need to be protected. The reason why you can't destroy a gear to overdrive is because some gears you can easily play for free, so it'd be a bit too much. Honestly, out of all of them, this is the one I'm most considering buffing, but we won't know until we see some play, so please use them. Oh, and in case you're wondering, if you honey trap and then try to overdrive Pegatrix, it won't work. Sorry. Halcor. At 1004, Halcor seems like he's going to be an absolute unit when he overdrives, right? Well, not exactly. For starters, bad course, Fist Shield, but his overdrive cost is pretty mild, allowing the opponent to rearrange the top 3 cards of their deck. Not a huge deal unless they can draw into a really good card, or they put a flip on top to stop the damage immediately.
Hey. So this card had to be reworked after I already edited the video and I didn't feel like re-recording. Anyway, he is now 1108. Not a big boost but not a big cost. His ability allows you to shuffle an action card that was either discarded or flipped, meaning discarded from damage, back into your deck. This gives you the opportunity to use a card that's integral to your deck that you lost from damage later on, like an HSB or Mock. Sacrifice also is a good combo with this card as you can just reshuffle any action card you discarded to get again later on. Now back to the normal part of the video.
Feral. Good base stats at 905 with Helix and Fist. Aurelus is hard to balance since you need to consider the disadvantages of using the faction instead of a better color, but I tried my best. His overdrive cost is allowing the opponent to energize the top card of their deck uncharged. Weird that Aurelus is doing it instead of Ventus, but technically they're like all the factions in one, I think. I don't know, I didn't watch the show. Anyway, the overdrive side is 1107 and allows you to search a gear card from your deck and put it into your hand. While yes, you can immediately get your best gears quickly, you're also giving your opponent a large energy lead. And Aurelus means you won't have all the really good counter cards that you might need, but Aurelus does have good gear cards, so that can help. Cycloid. Okay, listen. The second set of Bakugan was supposed to be the Geogon Rising gang, but obviously Drago wasn't misplaced, and I wasn't going to pull a Bakugan and just make another Drago. So I picked Cycloid. 504 Fire Fist Shield, not great as usual. You're better off using the Fire Fist to get 10 damage than going with V-Power, which is intended. But this is the first overdrive we've seen that has a requirement instead of a payment. To overdrive, your opponent must have 20 or more cards in their discard pile at the start of the turn, so you can't overdrive during the turn from dealing more damage. It must be at the start of the turn. And keep in mind that at the start of the turn is before the starting draw and even before you're able to energize, so the abilities of these last overdrive Bakugan happen before either of those. Once you overdrive, he becomes a 708. Not really the best stats even after overdriving, but pretty viable for damage wins. But the ability is what's supposed to help you make this Bakugan work. When it overdrives, you reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's an action card, you may play it for free. It's basically a Diet Dan. This Bakugan works great in aggressive decks that hit hard and fast, giving your opponent no chance to breathe. If you can deal enough damage to overdrive Cycloid before needing to use him, you'll be in good shape with a large lead, as well as Cycloid helping you keep in the lead with a potential free action card every turn. However, If you're unable to deal enough damage because of either the opponent having enough flips to stop all the damage, or for any other reason, you'll be in a bad spot. Because it's so hard to win with base Cycloid, and because your other Bakugan are stuck open, your opponent has the opportunity to take advantage of Cycloid's weak stats. Of course, you can use cards that close your open Bakugan to avoid this issue, but it's still something to keep in mind. Also keep in mind that a lot of action cards aren't helpful at the start of the turn, like reroll cards or negates, so make sure you have good action cards that increase stats in your deck for Cycloid to proc. Sharktar. Now we're getting into some of my favorites of the bunch. 601 with a Magic Shield Fist, standard bad stats. The overdrive requirement being you need to have 4 or more cards in your hand at the start of the turn. And yes, this works at the very first turn, making him the only overdrive Bakugan that can overdrive on the first turn for free, which is something to keep in mind. On the flip side, he's a 1004, meaning he's 1654 on his own cores, which is pretty dang decent. His ability is really simple, allowing you to scan at the start of the turn, once again before your starting draw, allowing you to manipulate what card you get to draw at the start of the turn. Were you about to draw a flip card? Put that shit at the bottom and get yourself a more useful card. Hopefully. This is great for setup decks that need certain cards and combos, allowing you to get those cards faster. A few notes. Since you do get to overdrive Sharktar at the start of the game, it's a good idea to use him as your opener, as not only does he have pretty good stats, but you might lose your chance to use him while he's in overdrive if you played too many cards beforehand. Also, you're going to want to pay attention to how many cards you're playing if you do want that scan every turn, because you need to end your turn with 4 cards in order to overdrive the next turn. It allows you to manipulate your draws, but also limits how many cards you can play if you want that advantage. An insanely fun but balanced idea, not to toot my own horn. Valkron. Coming with a Helix and a Fist with 700B and 2 damage. Valkron's overdrive requirement is having 5 energy cards in play at the start of the turn. Just to make sure everyone understands, it must be at the very start of the turn, not after the energize you get every turn. Once overdriven, he's an 1106, so 1703 with his own force. Pretty dang good for sure, especially with a ramp deck that can get you to 5 energy before having to use Valkron. Now the ability is very interesting. It makes all cards that you energize uncharged recharge immediately. So if you use a ramp card to energize something uncharged, it actually gets energized charged, essentially lowering the cost of cards that energize. Solar powered being a 3 cost? Hell no. That's now a 2 cost for an energy and reroll. Turn to energy? Only costs 1 now, baby. Swampugon being a 0 cost? Now it's a straight up net positive of 1 energy. The ability isn't inherently amazing, but it makes Ramp much better and more fun. Ramp is one of my favorite decks because of how silly it can get, and Valkron can really increase the silliness. Oh, also, I made sure he had a green fist to make Stone Blade of 0 cost. God, I love this card. Like with Cycloid, if you're unable to overdrive before you're forced to use Valkron, you're kinda giving your opponent a free round, so make sure you have a good ramp deck for it. Fenneca. Full disclaimer, I didn't have many good ideas with Fenneca, but I tried my best. Fenneca is a 901 with double shields. Pretty high B for the front side, which is intentional. She can get up to 1550 with a shared magic shield, which is pretty good, so make sure you keep that in mind if you can't meet the overdrive requirement in time. That being, you need 3 hero cards at the start of the turn. When in overdrive, she becomes a 1304, so a 1704 on her own cores and a 1950 with a shared magic shield. So pretty good B power potential, which makes up for the fact her ability is just okay. It lowers the cost of all of your hero cards by 1 energy. She thrives in decks that have low cost hero cards for early game and expensive heroes for late game. She definitely can be great in the right deck, but admittedly it is a bit bland. Vraskal. 107 base stats with a Helix and Shield. Very low base B power, but if you want to try damage wins, it is possible. The overdrive requirement is having 20 or more cards in your discard pile. Once that's met, she turns into a 1007 with the ability of giving a Bakugan 300 B power at the start of the turn. If you pass 3rd grade math, she's essentially a 1904 on her own cores, which is really good, while also essentially buffing your other Bakugan by 300 B. The downside is that there's a lot of counterplay. For starters, if you're not able to overdrive her before needing to use her, then your opponent is able to prepare to do loads of damage to you while they know you have a very weak link as your active Bakugan out. So they have the opportunity to take you out completely before Vraskal can even overdrive once. They can either do that, or use their energy and resources to set up heroes and gears during that turn. Another downside is that you need to be pretty close to death in order to use the overdrive side. Even though 20 cards is half of your deck, you'll most likely be lower in health than 20 if you consider the cards in your hands, your energy, and any gears or heroes you have out. So you have to be really down to use this properly. But you can use decks like Rapid Fire that play cheap cards quickly to put cards into your discard pile while still using those cards to win and escalate the process. She's supposed to help you win with giant comebacks while also being hard to use effectively. High risk, high reward once again. Pinsittar. Again, our list is hard to balance, but I really tried, I swear. Pinzatar has good cores of Magic Shield and a Fire Fist while being 402. Bad stats, but a potentially easy requirement to meet. You need 2 gear cards in play to be able to overdrive Pinzatar, which is really easy to do with low cost gear cards and gear reduction cores, so you can get this out pretty fast. When you do get to overdrive Pinzatar, he becomes 1105, so 1755 on his own core, which is pretty good. His ability is allowing you to reroll your active Bakugan once a turn. Keep in mind it's all of your Bakugan if they're in the active slot, not just Pinzatar. This isn't similar to an innate reroll because you're allowed to use this reroll even if you landed. So if a Moon Rune took off your core after you landed, you can use this reroll to get it back for free, but it's only once a turn. So if you think this will cause more mythic problems like the Moon Rune mythics, you're wrong and should be ashamed of yourself, because if there is a potential reroll shenanigan where you use this ability on a Moon Rune Bakugan and your opponent has an innate reroll Bakugan, this is what will happen. You both roll and miss intentionally because you want to use your Moon Rune, but your opponent doesn't want that to happen. The innate reroll allows a free reroll once if the Bakugan misses, while yours is like a reroll card. So now your opponent gets to reroll by themselves because technically you missed the initial roll. So now any rerolls afterwards are taking place separately. So now your opponent rolls and lands, and now you have the chance to use the free reroll and land to activate your Moon Rune. You do win in this scenario, but the game isn't soft locked like when it's 2 innate rerolls. If your Bakugan already has an innate reroll, that still works normally. But if you miss after that, you can still use the Pinstar reroll after, and hopefully get some lessons on how to roll better. I know that was a long explanation, but I don't want people to think this can cause a soft lock. Anyway, Pinstar can sort of just be put into any team if you want a free reroll, and doesn't need a specific deck to work with. Wait, don't click off the video yet if you love this idea and want to see more. This is not the only custom card that I'm working on. Far from it, actually. Not only is there more Overdrive Bakugan in the works, but an entire custom set as well, with new mechanics and everything. So if you're interested in more new content for the TCG, please subscribe and also follow my Twitter. I plan on actually using it now, and posting updates and new cards as well. I'm also working on a Discord server where all this will be discussed, and also just a place where Bakugan fans can just chill out. And hey, not a fan of the TCG format and much prefer the Legacy format? Well, I got something in store for you too. I'm working on a new format for Gen 2 Bakugan that's similar to the Legacy game. So if that sounds interesting, please subscribe. And are you bummed out about the useless pieces of plastics that you bought because you thought Gen 3 would be better? Guess what? I'm going to be adapting those into the TCG as well. That one is going to take a long time to finish, but if you're willing to be patient and really love the TCG, again, subscribe, stick around, and help me revive this mistreated card game. Bakugan as a franchise means so much to me, so I'd like to create ways for everyone to enjoy it in any way I can. I have lots of plans for future projects, and if you love Bakugan as much as I do, I would really appreciate if you stick around to see what I have planned. I'd also like to say thank you so much for getting us to 100 subscribers. We're pretty far past that by the time this video is out, but I still plan to make a collection showcase to celebrate, so look out for that as well. That's all from me, and to end this video, I'll put up a picture of all the Overdrive cards.